We're thrilled as part of our Wednesday morning series to have Eddie Capparucci again this week. So his getting to the other side with relationship challenges, particularly when there's addiction. So this is always great topics. I do want to throw this out right away too. I'm really thrilled to have Eddie's going to be starting a work group on the no, sorry, wrong one. On the seekingintegrity.com site, it will start in March. So if you go to the Seeking Integrity site, you'll see that under online work groups. But it is about going deeper. It's about inner child work, 6 weeks. He's going to be facilitating. We're thrilled, but it will be really looking at those issues. So please check that out. A work group, not therapy, not treatment, via Zoom. So anywhere in the world you are, check it out. Email me if you've got questions. So enough of that. Eddie, what have you got for us today?
Oh, Tammy, I got quite a bit. I am very excited about that course and that program, and to be, facilitating the initial offer for it. So I do hope that a lot of people, who want to learn more about the inner child and how it relates to our ability to understand why we think, act, and uh, feel the way we do, that they come and they join that. So please pass that along to everyone. So yes, the welcome, and here's another edition of Getting to the Other Side. And today, a little bit different. What I have for you are what I'm just calling quick sound bites. And basically what this is these are things that have subjects that have come up during the course of my conversation with clients or in talking with some of my peers over the past few weeks. So I just wanted to bring them up, but then I'm going to get into another subject that was really the point of this show today, and that's really going back to our wedding vows. So, what happened? We took these vows and, we're here today. So, but let's start with the quick soundbite. So the first one, your recovery work is very important, and that always needs to be a priority. People, I hear a lot of times when the betrayer's like, well, you don't understand. I have my job and we have the kids and, there's all these other functions that we have. It's really difficult to find that time to do my work. And it's like, yes, I understand. There's a lot in life that's happened, but, you also had found time before to, engage in some of those behaviors that, have put you in this place that you're in right now. But we need to find that time. But what also is happening is that what happens occasionally is that the betrayed partner will come to those who are betrayed and say, hey, I have something I want you to watch, or I have a podcast I want you to watch, or I have an article I want you to read. And there's many times I see that the betrayed have pushed back on it and say, I don't have the time to do that. I already do see what I'm working on already. I mean, and I just can't do that. That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. I mean, it's not a little mistake. It is a huge mistake. And you probably may ask, well, why? Why is it so big? Because there's certain things that you're communicating when you say, I, don't have the time. One, that what you need is not really very important to me. Two, you're interfering with my recovery plan. And three, and this is something a lot of people will actually tell the betrayed, is you're just trying to control my recovery. And you can't do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. You have to go stay in your own lane. And yes, let's face it, there are some people who've been betrayed that do try to spend more time controlling that, but that's based out of fear more than anything else. Excuse me. It's all fear. And they just want to make sure that the person is doing what they need to do along the way. It's still not the best way of managing that, but you could understand the reason for it and why it would happen. But if they come to you and they're saying, I need you to look at this, why are they doing that? They're not doing it because, oh, I just don't think you're doing enough and I got to throw this extra stuff on your pile, which again, as that, emotionally undeveloped man will take that. That's the way we'll take it. Like, oh, you just don't think I'm doing enough and you want me to do so much more. That's not what it is. What they're saying is, I've come across something that resonates with me. I've come across something that touched me, that really made me think that this is very important to not yours, our recovery. And therefore, I would like you to examine it and look at it. They are inviting you into their world of pain. They're inviting you into it. They're not taking the time and just grabbing you by the collar and dragging you in because they're grieving. They're inviting you in to be able to say, oh, here, you can help. Maybe you can better understand me and what I'm going through. That is one of the most difficult things that those who've been betrayed struggle with. It's like, I'm not sure he understands why the way I really feel. And the fact of the matter is, he doesn't. Okay, I've worked with betrayed women for a number of years until my wife took over that part of our ministry. And you know what? I've dealt with all of it. I can't sit here though and say I know what it feels like to be in your shoes. I have a great assumption of what that is because I've never been in that position myself. So I wouldn't be so presumptuous to say, oh, I know what you feel. I just don't think I can get myself to that place. I do think I can probably get about 80% there, but I would never know the full extent of all of it. So when you are being asked as a betrayed partner to look at this, read this, embrace that time, okay? Embrace it, all right? And take it upon you and realize and say, whoa, this is something that I can learn, that I can now go back and I can share with her what I think of this and what I believe it may mean to her. So that's one tidbit. Other tidbit I had was, as we go on to our recovery and we're in this process for a while, it's not unusual for the betrayed partner to bring up something from the past and pull it in to today, because what happened is it just came to mind. They got triggered, saying like, what, thinking about the way you were, the way that you just were never really here. You weren't engaged. You were present, but you weren't engaged for all these years. And again, those who have betrayed, the initial reaction is, you got to be kidding me. I mean, why are we going back there? What is that about? Why can't we just stay where we are today? What are you making me, try to go back there and feel guilty about and all of that? That again is an erroneous way of looking at things. And instead, what you should do is look at it as it's an opportunity to practice empathy. You should be embracing these moments because they don't come along that often. where now it is something that, and it gives the opportunity to show that you are starting to shift away from being emotionally underdeveloped and you are becoming more emotionally mature. So when they bring this to you and they're saying, I need to talk about something that I remember from a year ago, 2 years ago, instead of all of a sudden just starting to, be deflated or wanting to just push back, instead accept it. Again, this is an opportunity. This gives me an opportunity to show, hey, you know what? I can manage what it is that you're upset about, but more importantly, I can empathize where you're at. And like I said, those opportunities do not come along all that often. And then the last tidbit I want to share with you today is, and I had one of my clients say this to me just recently. And what he said was, I don't think I'm sharing enough with her. I was like, oh my God, that's fantastic insight. I was so excited to hear him say that. And when I asked, more, well, what is it that when you bring that up, why do you bring that up? Because I think she doesn't understand what's going on in my head. I'm like, okay, why is that important? Well, because if she knew what was going on inside my head, she would feel safe. Okay, why? Because I'm in a good place. And I've been in a good place, and I feel like I'm going to stay in a good place. Great. You're right. That's the biggest problem. They can see you doing all this work, but if you're not sharing about what you're going through in your life, if you're not talking about those things that may be troubling you or bothering you, the things that are weighing on your mind, whether it's I'm doing well or I'm no, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of struggling right now. They're clueless at this point. They're in the dark. They don't know what's going on, and all that does, it just strengthens their fear. And that, of course, again, leaves them not to feel secure. And without that security, the relationship building will never take place. So you do need to make sure that you're opening up. You need to make sure that you're being vulnerable. Again, what do we keep doing here, right? We're not just changing our bad behaviors. We are learning to be emotionally connected. That's all part of the new guy as we go through all of this. So I just wanted to bring those three things up to you because I think they're all important points that, need to be, they need to be talked about. And we need to make sure that we are focusing on them as they come up. So what I want to do, and I just want to take a few more minutes to talk about this, what I'm really going to talk to you about before we jump into questions, because we always wind up having so many questions, and I really want to answer them for everybody. And I want to go back to, I don't know what had me think about this, Tammy, but I was thinking about the wedding vows. And then I started thinking about me when I took my wedding vow the first time. And I realized, you know what? It was like, I missed that part. I didn't, and I don't say it to be funny. I'm not trying to be humorous, but you know what? I didn't take that seriously. It was part of everything that was going on. This was just, oh, this is what we do here. We do at this point, we do what are called wedding vows, and here they are. I'm like, okay, because all I was thinking about is, okay, I'm getting married. It's going to be, we're just going to have fun. We're going to enjoy life. We're going to go places. We're going to be, just going to be great. Not realizing, okay, even though I saw what bad marriages could be, thinking that's not going to happen to us. We're just all optimistic and positive about that. So what I did was I went back and I pulled out a wedding vow. Okay. And this is what it says. You will have this woman to be your wife to live together, or will you have this woman to be your wife, to live together in holy marriage? Will you love her, comfort her, honor, and keep her in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, to be faithful to her for as long as both of you shall live? It's interesting that sickness and health is something that always seems to stand out, that everybody seems to focus on if you talk about vows. Oh yes, that I will be there for you in sickness and in health, for good or for good or for bad or worse. All right. But there's so many other things that are in there: to love, comfort. Here's a big one: honor. You honor them. That part of what you're learning in your recovery right now, or at least I hope it is. Because if you're not learning to honor, then you better get rid of everything you have and you better start all over again. Because if that's not right there at the center and the heart of everything you're doing, you're going to miss the mark. It is about honor. And of course, it is about keeping them in sickness and in health. Forsaking all others and being faithful. Forsaking all others and being faithful. And that doesn't just equate to other people. It equates to pornography. It equate to fantasy. We are not forsaking others if we're fantasizing. We're not forsaking others if we're engaged in porn. We're not forsaking others at that point, and we're not being faithful. And without that sense of being faithful, what is going to happen is we're going to lose trust. And trust is a foundation for every relationship there is. And without trust, there is no relationship. So you're starting to rebuild that right now, but you have to go back to the honor. And you know what? There is never a better testing ground for honor than when you're in recovery and you're trying to assist your partner, your spouse, with their betrayal trauma. Okay, because there you have to be able to continue to see pain and not hostility. And by seeing the pain, with that, it becomes a sense that I'm going to honor. I'm going to hold your heart in my hand, despite the fact that you're throwing rocks at me. And again, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just being serious. You're throwing rocks, and rightfully so. But I'm going to hold your heart in my hand, and I'm going to guard it, and I'm going to protect it, and I'm going to honor you. I'm going to honor the fact that right now you have every right to feel the way you are, and you do, and you have every right to be acting the way you do. I'm not going to get offended by it. I'm just going to be here for you. So, I think that's part of it, because what happens is that emotionally undeveloped man, we didn't take those vows seriously. Really treated them as an afterthought. They're just there. And basically, and most importantly, we were really oblivious to their importance. And therefore, for us to change, to become real men, mature men, that is what is so important. And that's why I believe that, again, being sober is not enough. It's just not enough. There has to be those character changes that we have that makes it so that we can honor and love, cherish people as we go forward in our recovery. So Tammy, that's all I got for you today.
Well, that's great stuff. And I was thinking, man, if we wrote with big letters, like honor, comfort, like it had that on the fridge, and we're paying attention every day. Am I honoring my spouse? Am I doing what is good for our relationship? Like that's a really, that would be a change of focus. I think, when you were talking about, yeah, I got married and thought everything was going to be fun and we're going to have, and I think that is often, what is perceived in the, I mean, the rom-coms all, it's like, oh, it's all the great stuff. There's nothing about like the challenge of being in a relationship with another person, particularly in a marriage. But anytime you're living with another person, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's stuff that comes up. But the unrealistic, and that I should always feel like the excitement of the wedding day, that feeling, rather than going, okay, I've made this commitment, and there's going to be challenges, and I'm going to be a challenge, and they're going to be like we have to navigate this. But I think honoring like what is what I'm going to do, be honoring to myself, to you, to the relationship, that would be a very different perspective. I want to go back to your quick tidbits, because
Yeah.
number one, like I can't tell you how many times I hear from betrayed partners, they go, oh, I bought him out of the doghouse and like 3 months ago and he hasn't read it. Like those are not hard books, this is not, and
Mhm.
and how dismissive that is of a betrayed partner to not be willing to do. I won't do a podcast. I hear often, I won't do, he won't do, like,
Right.
well, I'm not going to do that. And I think then you stand no chance. I mean, really, because you are saying, I don't care about the relationship. I don't
Right.
care about my betrayed partner. I just care about me, 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 which is all what addiction is me, 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 me. So,
Definitely, it's not going back to what that I talk about all the time, right? That is
yeah.
that again, that emotionally voided individual, and we're trying to break free of that, and we're trying again to become the new guy. We're trying to be outwardly focused. But you're right, that mentality it is too strong, and but it can be changed. You can change all of it. It just becomes a new mindset. You open up new neural pathways by just trying to accomplish it. Oh, you know what? I just remembered why the wedding vow came up, because my son is getting married in May, and I've been asked to officiate the wedding, which I am very honored to have been given that. But I made me go back to start looking at those wedding vows, and all of a sudden I sat there and reading those words, and I was like, it's like, wow, never really looked at them the way I should have looked at them. And I know many other people do the same. So anyway, that's where that did came up.
Something tells me that you and your son and future daughter-in-law are going to have the conversation about like all of that, so that they have a very good foundation on which to build. So I'm
We've already,
excited for you. Yeah.
we've already started having that, and we'll
Yes.
continue to have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that they are supported in a real and meaningful way. So
Right.
excited for
Well,
you though.
yeah, well, my kids know my story. My kids, I spelled it out in that book, Removing Your
I was
Shame
going to
was a
say,
book.
when it's in a book, it's kind of hard to avoid. So
It's
yeah.
hard to avoid it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
there. It's all out there for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, we've got
Should we
bunches
dive
of
into questions?
questions. Yes, we do. So,
Yes.
so does the addict need to completely understand his root causes and core reasons that led to the addiction in order to properly process the childhood traumas and heal into long-lasting recovery? In other words, if left unresolved, will the addict relapse and go back to the addiction?
So I would, as I read this, I think some people are saying, "Oh man, this is a setup question." He had somebody put this here. Yes, absolutely. I truly believe that a person who has the addiction needs to understand the root cause of reason. And so therefore, and again, as I tell people, I think there's two factors that play into all addiction. And one is those unresolved childhood pain points that still haunt us today. And two, our inability to sit with emotional distress. We've never learned to do it. We don't do it. And that's why all those childhood pain points are still unresolved. And that's why we get triggered. So therefore, if they are, to answer your question, if they are left unresolved, yes, it will lead to relapse. It will lead to go back to addiction because they're going to get triggered and they're not going to know what to do with it because they don't know that they're being triggered. And two, they don't know what that trigger is about. And three, most importantly, they don't know how to sit and process it so that they can go and move and pick up, do something that's healthy that can help to soothe themselves.
So, and I'll tag on, they may not return to that exact addiction, but they'll, it's the whack-a-mole, they'll turn to something else. But you can also know exactly why. And so, cognitive behavioral therapy, stop it, the acting out, and then address the issues. Because I know lots of people who know why, and they're still acting out. So you can have all the head knowledge, but until you have the tools, and as Eddie was saying, like you have to have some emotional bandwidth to be able to handle the distress or even the discomfort. It doesn't even have to be distress. It can feel like distress, but like it may be just minor discomfort. And addicts are going, running for the hills going, I can't deal with this,
Right.
So,
and that, what, Tammy, that's a good point because that's why I refer to it as emotional discomfort. Because again, it doesn't have to be. And that's a wonderful point you bring up. You could know the why. You could figure that part out. But again, you could still be acting out because you haven't done anything to fix the why. So again, it becomes, yes, I'm a big believer in insight. I do want to know why I think, feel, and act the way I do. But I also then have to do that hard work to be able to put together solutions to those problems.
And the other thing, when you use completely understand, I've been in recovery for, a while. And a few years ago, I had another layer of insight. So I think I think the journey is that we have, and it's stuff that I couldn't have dealt with early on, like that would have been so overwhelming, and I couldn't have grasped any of that. So my journey has been, I'm continuing to be open, I'm continuing to learn, and more is revealed, and then I work on it. So it continues to be those layers. And I remember I was having a big sobriety birthday, and like there was another revelation, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be all wrapped up with a bow and be done. And then I was like, no, I want to be grateful that I have the capacity to continue to learn and to continue to strive for, and it completely shifted it. And so, I would love to have it be, there's a piece of me that would like to be all like zen and perfect. Ain't gonna happen. I'm human. So
it's not, you know what, I go through the same thing.
Yeah.
I go through the same thing. I've been in recovery for like 25 years and I still have revelations. And it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I got everything done. I thought I figured everything out, but now I realize, oh, that's why I do this.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Exactly. And to have language and tools, and like I love all of this. I continue to learn, just along with everybody else. And I love that because I go, oh, that all, it's a journey, and to embrace that. I will never completely know all things, but I get more information. So, but you also shared, you've been in recovery 25 years. You didn't have to relapse or go back out and do other things. You've been able to continue to learn and grow. So we can stop the behaviors across to all of our acting out, not switch to another one, and then learn more. So,
correct.
Okay, my husband, and sorry, I'm going to the eye doctor today. I'm so excited, but I'm a little squinty. My husband keeps on saying that he is scared of bringing stuff up because he doesn't want to hurt me, and me becoming triggered because he doesn't know how to talk. I feel that he should go for it regardless. How can I make him understand that this is about his fear and not about connecting with me? That's a
Yes,
great question.
and it is true. It is about his fear. His fear that, I'm going to trigger you. I don't know what to do at that moment. And what he needs to do, that's the point right there. He doesn't know how to talk. What he needs to do is go and do the work on what is it? How can I be emotionally engaged and connected with you? And that's what he needs to learn. And there are those emotional intimacy classes that are out there, emotional uh, anorexia classes. Tammy, what do you have from SI and things?
We on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. I mean, even even the attachment wounds drop-in
Yeah,
group on Fridays, like because you're poking that. I was thinking fear is false events appear real, and so he's making up in his head that what your reaction is going to be and all of that.
that's
And
correct.
I'm like, try it. Like, you guys can sit down and say, and he can say, I'm going to bring up something difficult, and are you willing to hear it? Like, try it instead of just going to the, you know I'm protecting you. Well, how quaint. I'm protecting you by not telling you.
Hmm.
And it keeps, again, it keeps him distanced, and it keeps him not being true and meaningfully vulnerable with you, which is a big wedge in your relationship. Then, I mean, that's
And
what I
what it also does, it keeps him locked into the addictive cycle. Okay, he may not be acting out, but he's trying to run away. He's trying to hide. And again, and I'm not saying that his what he's saying is not true, that he doesn't want to trigger you. I heard that from many
Mhm.
men. However, it's still an excuse not to be emotionally engaged. So what he needs to do is he needs to go and work on that. So again, I'd be looking at the attachment courses and the emotional intimacy courses so that he can learn how to validate you and how to be able to stay present and not allow his emotion to trump yours.
Yeah, and it may trigger you, but if it's like, I want to have a difficult conversation with you, and you've got your own support, you can get support, and it can still be he shared. Not all of them are going to go great, but what, as you guys practice this, it gets a little easier. So,
Right.
okay, next question. How do you tell your SA partner that the new guy can't just be left SA without the acting out behaviors? That's
They can't,
exactly right.
yeah, I can't be the SA guy without the acting out behavior.
Right.
Yes, and the way I tell them is using things like I did at the beginning of this webinar that we were doing. I give them little, sound bites. I give them examples of what it means when you are only focusing on your addiction and you're not trying to transform the heart. You're not going to have real changes in the relationship. The person who you betrayed is still not going to feel safe. And that part of, the whole idea is like, okay, I've done everything I need to do. I am sober. I don't know what else I need to do. It's like, well, first and foremost, you're wrong. You haven't done everything you need to do. You might have done everything you need to do from a sobriety standpoint. That's great. Congratulations. I applaud you, but that's half the battle. That's not even half the battle. The
Right.
bigger battle is more about you and who you are, your fear, your insecurities, your different, your those triggers that are hidden that you don't know about, that you have to bring to the forefront, address them, sit with them, and sit with that discomfort. And this goes back to the question before. He doesn't want to sit with that discomfort of when you get triggered. He doesn't want to sit. So he wants to run away. So yeah, but that's how I go about doing that. I go and I show them what is the consequence if you stop when you feel like, okay, I'm sober. Because also, and Tammy brought this up before, if you haven't addressed a lot of those points, Okay, which in order to get sober with me, they have to go there and address some of those. But if you still haven't gone back to become the new guy, learn all the different things you have to do about being emotionally vulnerable, about learning to be curious, sitting with that pain, if that doesn't happen, you still run the risk of going and acting out at some point. And why? Because when things happen in the world, and if the world hits you over the head with a 2x4, and you're not out there sharing it, if you're not out there talking about it, then you're just letting it build up and build up and build up. And eventually it's gonna burst. And what also Tammy said was, and it may not even go back to a sex addiction or porn addiction. It may go back to something else, like a food addiction, or you know, or becoming a workaholic, or whatever it may be. But again, what it is about that emotional discomfort that we don't want to deal with it. So anyway, that's the way I help them understand that. And I'll say this: when you start telling them about that, it clicks. It just all clicks, and they're like, "Yep, you're right." And then, especially when you start outlining to them how did it go wrong, and you start showing them those stages of childhood development that they missed, then they're like, "Oh my God, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together, and I can see what was wrong with me."
So in AA, they talk about a dry drunk. Someone who just doesn't drink is a dry drunk. So they're just
Right,
as miserable and
right,
just as, actually, I think they're more miserable because they're not able to drink. If they're not drinking, they don't have the tools of recovery. So it's, I think, the worst possible place to be in. And I had this fleeting thought of, like, when I was in early recovery, someone said, you stop drinking and then you change everything. And that's what it takes to be the new guy or gal. But it takes being willing to change everything. But the benefits of doing that are, I'm not living in that miserable place. I'm,
mm,
I'm able to connect in real and meaningful ways. So someone who isn't willing to do what it takes, they're in a dry drunk, or just, again, it's the acting out is a symptom. So you've thrown a band-aid on, but you've got a deep wound infection, and it's toxic.
right.
Okay, next question. 2 months since D-Day. Betrayed partner here. My betraying partner is really struggling to fight off shame. He's attended Friday shame resilience groups. Thank you. There are other things? Oh wait, are there anything I can they do remind
You would
him
remind
to,
him.
thank you, to when shame starts to take over, so he can maintain focus on me and my pain in the moment.
Right. So, one, I'm sorry that you're going through this. And again, it's very early in the process here. So I would be expecting his shame to be very strong. I'm glad, one, he's going to this group. That's going to help. A lot of times with shame, this is not something that we can just say, stop feeling shame and done. Because the shame isn't just about what he has done here. It is all the negative narrative that he believes about himself that have been there way before you ever came into the picture. And those are the things that need to be fully addressed. I'm a little reluctant to give you a lot of things to do this early in the development. I think Tammy would agree with that because, again, you have your own pain that you're trying to deal with here. I mean, but I get it. You asked, so I'll give you one. One thing you can say to him as you're starting is, look, you know what? I do think you're a good man, but I think you've done some very bad things. That's something, because again, that's what shame is. Shame is I am bad versus guilt, which is I've done things that are bad. So if you could bring yourself to do that, um, that would be helpful if that's what you're trying to do. I have confidence in you. I believe that you have the good heart. We just need to get you the answer to the problems you've had that had you acting out this way. So,
Well, and I hope he's doing way more than just attending the Friday morning
Oh,
group,
yeah.
because yeah, I mean, like, I say this often, if he's doing, if he's expending as much energy on his recovery as he did on his addiction, he'll do great. But like it, where if he's doing the 12 steps, steps 4 through 9 are where the magic happens. That's where we get rid of some of the shame. It's where we, learn to change. So what he's doing, how much he's actively engaging in a recovery process. Hopefully he's done the sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101 work group. Those are, key components too. So if he's really doing a lot, you will start to see his shame diminishing, I think, too. So, okay. Oops, sorry. Hang on. All right, next question is, how can I get him to understand how much he hurts and devastates me when he is very defensive, telling me why he has not done something, or telling me he is emphatic when he is not. I struggle not hearing empathy. That we hear this all the time. I have suggested that he speak to his sponsor, his therapist, about how to be empathetic, and his answer was that he is empathetic. Oh, maybe he thinks so, but I do not. Like,
Mm. Yeah,
this is a head
I
slap
know.
one.
He's fighting you here. He's feeling that he knows more than he does. And right, that he does. He needs somebody to sit down with him to be able to say, look, you might think you got it all together here with your communication skills, but that's not what's happening. Um, I think also what probably, and again, I am not for when people are just starting their therapy or doing their therapy. I'm not a fan of doing couples counseling because I don't think that helps. But I think you getting in there with his counselor and saying, look, these are things that are going on. These are issues that I'm having. This is what I'm seeing. At least now his counselor is aware of that and can work with him to give him the direction and guidance that he needs. Because again, he may think he is being empathetic, but he really doesn't even know what empathy is. And the defensiveness, again, where you could sit there and tell him all day long, stop doing that, stop doing that. That's not going to get him to stop doing it. He needs to have somebody who's going to walk him through. And again, another emotional anorexia class for him, something like that would probably be wonderful. But I would probably get in to talk with his counselor with him and say, let us show you what this looks like, or dynamic, and how I'm still struggling here.
And I was thinking the Out of the Doghouse work group that will be starting
Mm,
again in March, because that is, they talk about those things. But I do know that addicts, do get very defensive. So language like the story I'm telling myself when you tell me that you are empathetic is you're not hearing, what I'm saying. Or when the situation isn't happening, just say, when I'm sharing something challenging for you, here's the behavior I would like you to, to follow. Be very specific about what you're looking for, and it will feel awkward and like he's just doing what, kind of rotely. But, that's where we have to start, is we have to practice with, very basic skills. So,
yep.
okay, next question. What would you say to betraying spouses who aren't in recovery and maybe refuse to seek it?
This is it's a wonderful question. Um, you have to remember those who've been betrayed, they're like, why should I have to go to therapy? Why should I have to be in group? I haven't done anything wrong. And I'm the one who has to watch these podcasts, and I have to read these books, and I have to do all that. And this is not fair. Fully agree. I fully agree with you. It's not fair. However, if you want to move on, if you want to get unstuck, then you need to go and get the resources that you need that will help you. Because just sitting back and ruminating in your own head all the thoughts, all the ideas, all the images that you may be having there is not healthy. You need a therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma, who will help you there. You need a group such as the one that Tammy has that are for the women who they can get together and realize I'm not alone. There are others who struggle with me and be in support. That is all vital. I've seen marriages that could have been repaired that do not get repaired. And the reason being, not because the betrayer didn't do his work, he did it. And he actually became that new guy. But it was because those who were betrayed refused, because part of it because they're scared. They refused to go and get the help they need. And again, I sympathize with that. I understand where they're going from, but still, there's a need for that.
And I use the language of you deserve support. I don't even talk about recovery with betrayed partners because it has the tone of addiction and like there's
Mhm.
a problem. Now, I do think healing, I think they're deeply wounded. So from that standpoint, you get recovery for those deep wounds. But you deserve support. This is horribly betraying, and you deserve someone who's going to hear you and be able to support you and work through the body, like EMDR or somatic experience to help process it through the body. So but as Eddie said, when someone is stuck and refuses, it's hard to be on a healing path. But at the end of the day, if you're the person, you can just work on you,
Mhm.
and hopefully the other person starts seeing
Yeah.
that things are starting to shift. So
I like that, Tammy. I like that, what you said, that you deserve this. You're right. They do. They deserve that. Yeah.
yes, they didn't ask for the Mack truck to hit them. So
No.
okay, what type of person won't do that? As Tammy said, I wrote a blog about that. I get so
Mhm.
frustrated with hearing about that. So after 40 years of marriage, my husband now claims he never agreed to any of those wedding vows, and he never loved or respected me. Is he an abuser beyond his addictions? I am trying to figure out where I missed all this hatred.
Um, yeah, a man who says that I never agreed to my wedding vows, I never loved you, I never respect you. Yes, that's abuse. That's all verbal abuse. Um, so yeah, there's an issue. What kind of man is he? I'm not going to put a label on him because again, I haven't met him, so I'm not going to sit here and to diagnose. But trying to figure out where you missed all the hatred. I think you got to go back and you have to start to figure out, what have I gotten out of this relationship, if anything, and is there anything for me to get out of it moving forward? So I don't know, Tammy, what do you think?
I think that's a terribly hateful thing to say.
Oh,
I
horrible.
do think it is justification. So it feels like an addict going, I want to do what I want to do, and you're in my way. And so if I really push you away, and like he's really, I mean,
Mhm.
that's very hurtful
Vicious,
language. Yeah, vicious is the right word.
vicious.
But guess what? If he can distance himself and blame you for everything, like, oh, I never loved you, I never, then he can go off what he perceives on his merry way, but it isn't. So what do you need to do to take care of you? Healthy boundaries. Do you want to stay in a relationship with a person who is that vicious? I don't know. So
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think you really got to do the work.
yeah. Next question. When I get abandoned um, for this so many times by this boy man for 1.5 decades, I decided to marry myself and made some, um, oh, geez, you got to help me with this.
Made vows to
Vows,
myself.
think. Okay, keep reading because I'm like,
Okay, made vows
seriously.
to myself. Okay, thank you for reminding me. I'll read them again tomorrow. By the way, he even said to me at one time, "Thank God I never married you." Again, I'm sorry. That's awful.
Oh,
He was married twice before me, and it really hit me hard. Now I'm working on my relationship with myself and my maker. Good for you.
awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
again, there it is. That's about boundaries. That's about, I'm not taking this any longer. I'm not going to allow you to wind up, you know, I determining who I am, that I am going to be who I want to be. So thank you. I hope other people in hearing this, I hope it's motivating to them. You do not have to stay in a relationship where a person is not honoring you. Go back to that thing I said, honor. And the comment that he made here, and just like the previous one, that there's no honor there. And if you don't have somebody who wants to honor you, then there is no relationship. So congratulations, that's wonderful.
But you have a relationship with yourself and your maker. You
That's
are
right.
in good hands. So,
Great hand.
yeah.
Okay, go to the next one.
Yes.
From Chris. How can I repair trust when I continue to feel overwhelmed and flooded? I've been trying to repair trust, but keep failing. Sure, I'm sober, but it's not enough. I'm angry, and I think it's because I haven't given myself to surrender and acceptance.
Mm,
I think in the last few weeks, I've become so overwhelmed because I have a lot of stuff going on in my life. Mom passed away, being
mm.
called into HR because of the math policy, etc. So, Chris, what you're saying is that you are drained. You're drained mentally, emotionally, physically, and you may be drained spiritually. Whenever we're drained, bad things are going to happen. Okay. Now, the fact is, you're saying, okay, I'm sober, but you're right, it's not enough. The trust that you're trying to repair, you're having a hard time because you're being drained. And therefore, what you have to do is work on how do I replenish myself depending on what it is, whether it's emotionally, mental, physical, or spiritual. How do I replenish myself that it gives me more energy, it keeps me more focused so that you can work on those things that you really need to work on. But anyway, bravo for working on that sobriety. That's wonderful. But now, like, yeah, we've got to keep going, but you also have to, again, grieve with mom. I'm sorry about that loss. That's a hard one. Uh, to be able to persevere, the word persevere. How do I keep moving on? But again, you got to find that way to replenish yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And, the grieving, but, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed. So, my bandwidth is going to be less if I'm any one of those. And you've got a lot going on with all of those. So, so what can you do? You can't control that your mom died.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things? Reprioritizing, like I are there things that can be pushed off the list so that you have time, to take care of you? I'm so glad you're here,
Hmm.
to get that replenishment. So,
Good. Okay, this is an interesting one.
mhm.
Um, how does a therapist know when the sex addict client is being honest and truthful? If the therapist is being manipulated and drinking the Kool-Aid, I've heard that before. My essay lies and as easily as breathing, looking straight to my face and doing it. He drinks when he said he doesn't. He betrayed me for 45 years and protect what he loves. He sees a CSAT and has been in a 12-step program for 5 years. He keeps the seat warm every week, telling the therapist sponsors what they want to hear, but his lies never stop. He lies to my adult son, and he's so good at it. How does a therapist know? A therapist usually knows because most of the time somebody's going to trip themselves up. And especially if you're probing in to go deeper with questions and you need to make them really start to think about, again, what's truly going on with you. When you're getting these shallow answers, then you know there's something wrong. However, here also, I think in this case, what a therapist needs to be doing is, and I do this, is I say, hey, you know what? I'd like to talk to your wife next week. Bring her in. And I want to know, what does the wife think? this way, then I can see, do the two things match up? And in some cases, I find out they don't really match up. And it's more in the lines of, how he's doing in helping her heal. Because I usually get, oh no, I'm doing really well. I think I'm doing great in validating and I'm not being defensive. And yet we find out it's very different. So here with this gentleman who's your husband, again, it seems like it's been a relationship that you've been in that had not been a very healthy one for a long time. And it seems like he has absolutely nobody desire to get better. Now you just popped up something, you said he refuses for me to talk to his therapist. Okay, so now you know what I'm saying to you now? Where are your boundaries? Know your boundaries. And I know, you've been married 45 years. I know you're older. I know you don't want to probably make all these kind of changes. But again, what are you going to do? Either you learn, you can stay in that relationship and you learn how to thrive in it, despite him, which is like, you know what? I just go on my own. I do what I want. And I have like almost an in-house separation. I'm not doing anything for him. I'm just going to focus on my life and my world. Or do you say, you know what, I want to live out the rest of my days, at least with some kind of peace here, because obviously he doesn't want to change. And most likely, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, I think the likelihood of him doing that is not very high.
Yeah, and we've had guys, right now the record is 11 years of going to their therapist and lying. We've had guys that have taken chips at 12-step, like 4-year chips, and were never sober. So
Yeah,
unfortunately, lying, our clinical director at our treatment program, Seeking Integrity, uses tell the truth and tell it faster. Lying is unfortunately inherent in addiction to
right,
ourselves
right.
and everyone else. But I agree with Eddie. Therapeutic separation for you, whether it's in the house or outside. This whole thing, he refuses. I'm like, again, what are your boundaries around? If he refuses that, then what are, and it's not
Mhm.
punitive consequences, but what do you need? If you refuse to do this, then what I need to feel safe is this. So
Right, right.
okay,
So at first, let me apologize that we're not going to get to
we're
all
not going
these
to get through all
questions.
these.
And I'm going to say, Tammy, you know what we're going to do next time? We're just doing questions next time.
Okay, we'll
Okay,
just
that
do
we're going to do a show.
questions.
We're going to do a show on questions. So,
March will be questions.
okay, so thoughts about recovering a recovering essay using video gaming to self-soothe distress and emotional dysregulation. Okay, so what you're saying is that he goes to video games now as opposed to going to porn or wherever he was. Again, what you've done is you change one thing to another. Now, I will say this, because again, I don't know the circumstances. Is he better? Is he doing better in being able to emotionally engage? Or if he's still numbing out, if he's still running away 100% of the time, if he's made some progress and he uses his video game sporadically to do that, okay. If he's doing it every day, several times during the day, and he's not emotionally engaged, then he's got to go back to become the new guy. Okay. And that's where you got to start getting into the idea of what the book of Why Men Struggle to Love, so he can understand what went wrong, and then sitting in front of a therapist who can help him with that. And Tammy, I got to tell you, I'm hearing from a lot of people that their therapists are grabbing a hold of that book and they're starting to use that now. So that's good news for them with
That
that.
is good. And gaming, I find to be highly problematic. Lots of the clients that come to our treatment program also use gaming, and lots of the gaming also has sexual content, or I would call it some form of porn. So it is, if it's 15 minutes, a couple times a week, maybe. But yeah, if it's being used as like, I'm now doing this, it's the same dopamine. It completely hijacks the brain and is,
Mhm.
game. There's a treatment center up in Washington state for just gaming. So gaming
Right.
is
There's
highly
several,
problematic for
yeah,
lots of
there's
people.
several of them throughout the country
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
So that's
but it's
good.
one of those where it's not just a benign, oh, I'm just vegging out. No, there's, it's, yeah. And again, if it's taking away from the relationship, taking away from the
That is
family.
a problem. The
Mhm,
problem.
yeah.
Hey, Tammy, I want to offer something for the
Mhm.
people whose questions are up here that I haven't answered. If they reach out to me by email, I will answer their questions for them. So,
Yes. And bring them back in March.
I'll bring them back to that. Ed Kappa, EDCAPPA @gmail.com. Send them to me and I'll get back to you and I'll answer it as much if I can. Okay.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for reading for me. I'm hoping I get good news from the eye doctor today, but
What
we'll see.
happened? What's the matter?
I'm old. I have cataracts. They like
Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking through a cloud, so it's really
I'm
sucks. But
sorry. I
anyway,
wish you would have
no,
known that. I would have done it earlier
no,
for you.
I just was going like, this is not going well. And so thank you for stepping in. And hopefully
It's
next month
okay.
I have like new eyes.
Here
I'll
you
be the new
go.
woman with new eyes.
People, pray for
Yeah.
Tammy's eyes,
Please. Yes,
please.
please. No,
Okay.
seriously, please. So, okay.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes.
everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.